Hello, 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 it is Ihlamur, and it's been a little while, but I'm back with you for another focus on the Pioneers video, and today we're focused on the Forager. And we'll just take a look at these guys working away. You plonk your Forager building down somewhere close to your porcini mushrooms, or maybe your raspberry bushes, or of course near your flax, which will be on the sandy ground. Wild growing flax, good for weaving, getting your rope and your backpacks and your armor and things like that. Or you put it down next to your foresters and your woodcutters to pick up the extra firewood, meaning that those guys can focus on what's really important, which is of course getting your wood. And as you can see, these guys, they go out with their baskets, they collect whatever is closest. They'll go to the closest resource first and pick that up until they store 16 of that resource in their building, and then they'll pick something else. Or if their building's full, they'll stop working and they'll wave at you and try and convince you that you need to do something. Now, of course, the question that everyone's asking is, where do I plonk my building down? Where do I want to put my forager? And I've done a little bit of research on this, and what I've discovered is that raspberries and porcini take 5 minutes, that's 300 seconds, to grow, to ripen. And it takes them another minute to a minute and a half actually to appear. So it's about 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes for your raspberries and your porcini to replenish, to regenerate, so that you can get more of them. And then it will take your foragers, depending on where you've put your forager building, it'll take your foragers about 60 seconds, 45 seconds, 60 seconds, depending on where you put it, to go out, harvest that porcini mushroom or that raspberry, bring it back and deposit it so that they're ready to go out again. Now, of course, there's 3 of our foragers, so that is on average 20 seconds that you're getting a new unit or item that you can then use. And then it takes time for those items to replenish, like we've said, around 6.5 minutes. That means that you're going to want around 18, 19, 20 of the porcini mushrooms or the raspberries around your forager building, and preferably within those first 2 rings. Although your guys can go out 100 meters, that's to the furthest ring, it's much more efficient for them to stay within the 50-meter range. And you can see here as these guys work away that actually I've got 19, I think, different places where mushrooms and raspberries can be harvested within these first couple of rings, and my foragers are working away quite happily without having to take any breaks. So that is good. What that means is that if you can put your forager down with around 20 items or resources that you want to collect within your first couple of rings, you're going to be golden. And I would suggest that you mix it up between the raspberries and the porcini if you're going to do that. Of course, flax, which we're going to look at here, grows in a much tighter bunch. It grows very close together, and it actually means that you can collect it quicker. That's great, but flax takes longer to grow. It takes almost 8 minutes to grow your wild flax, to replenish it, along with the time taken to reappear, so nearly 9 minutes. That means that it's going to get collected quicker, but then take longer to grow. So actually, you're going to need around 40 flax to keep your foragers busy if you're focused on foraging flax. Wow, easy for me to say. Imagine if we called our foragers Philip. We'd have to say that Philip, our forager, was focused on foraging flax. Which is not a sentence I ever thought I would say. Firewood is similar. Obviously, you get firewood when your foresters are working, and so it tends to be in a much smaller area, and you can put your forager down somewhere close and collect that. But I would say firewood is so easy to collect from other places, and other people can do it, and it doesn't really affect their efficiency for the foresters and the woodcutters. So yeah, I'm not going to focus too much on firewood. But what it means is that you can collect around, if you were just doing porcini, around 180 units per hour. If you were just doing raspberries, again about 180 units per hour. And if you were getting flax, around 360 units per hour. So your forager can be a really powerful worker, especially in the early game. The limitation, of course, is that you are limited to what's in your natural environment. There has to be naturally occurring flax, porcini or raspberries around in order to collect them. You can make firewood, but the rest have to be natural. Here's something that's important. If you build a road over a raspberry bush or a porcini or a flax, or if you put a building too close to it, or even if you start planting trees close to them, Unfortunately, they're never going to grow back. If you destroy them, they never grow back. If your forager forages them, then they do grow back after a minute and a half or so. Interestingly enough, the naturally generated ones in the island, when you first see them, that's the area that they're going to grow in, but actually they might not grow back in exactly the same place. But once you start foraging, the algorithm or whatever it is chooses an appropriate place for your porcini or your raspberry bush, and it will regenerate it there every time, unless, in the same place, unless something in your environment changes. So why is it important to have foragers? Well, for one, they're really useful when you have a tavern, because they can produce your raspberries, which are your dessert, and your porcini, which is a good side meal, and it means that your meals become much more nutritious in the case of your raspberries, or you produce more comfort meals, more comfort score, which means you can boost your population more easily, and both the raspberries and the porcini can help with that, because as you know, when you make a meal, you can make it using a main dish, which is generally your meat, your side dish, which is corn or porcini in this case, and then a dessert, which is your raspberry, and that just always can be useful, and then your water, which you always go automatically, and that actually just boosts your score up until, I think 17 might be the max. I'll take another look at that later. But a tavern is kind of a later game thing, right? So actually, I believe the forager is more important for your weaving early on. Because if you can start getting armor quite quickly, which you need your flax to go to your weaving shed, you need your weaving shed to have cloth, which then you produce armor, light armor or padded armor, you can give that then to your rangers, then you're going to be setting yourself up pretty well for your army. Now you do have to expand your base normally. You don't your territory. You don't normally have all those resources that you need straight away. So you need to get your soldiers, your guardsmen moving your borders out, and you can direct those to places where the forager can work and help you out in the early game. So that's going to be my recommendation. For those of you who really want to focus on these foragers, here's the all-important statistics with our cheat sheet here. You can build the forager, again, almost anywhere that you would think, apart from on the rocks, the cliffs, in the water, in a swamp, the actual swamp, or a cliff plateau, easy for me to say, a cliff plateau, or on the scree, that's the brown stuff. The footprint is a 2x2, which as we know is 64 meters squared, and its range is 100 meters. So when you look at that circle, it's 100 meters. And that means that your foragers, if they were to walk out all the way to the end, it would take them about 90 seconds to do so. But as we've already discussed, they shouldn't need to do that. They should only have to walk about half of that at max. So your output for all three foragers, you're going to have food, porcini or raspberries, about one every 20 seconds, 1 unit of food coming in, and flax, if you can put it really close to a flax field, about 10 seconds. The difference between the forager and farmers, of course, the forager actually a little bit more efficient if you can put the forager in a good location. The good thing about farms, you can choose where you put your farms, your fields, and so you can make those much more efficient. You have much more choice along with those. Building takes a minute to a minute and a half to build it, depending on how quickly your builders can get there, and it's only going to be 2 builders, and it's an early game build. It only needs softwood beams to build. It's very basic. In our next couple of episodes, we're going to be looking at the provisioner and at the tavern to really see how these food combinations will affect us. But what I'm seeing is actually the forager is going to be really important to boost your production, boost your population, but it's probably going to be in the second phase of the game rather than the first phase of the game. If you've enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. If you've learned something new, put it in the comments, tell me what you learned. And if there's something that you know about the forager that I don't know, feel free to put that in the comments as well. This is a learning experience. I'm not saying I know everything, but I am telling you everything I know. Have a lovely day, enjoy this game, and I'll see you in the next episode.